everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video guys, I'm going to show you how to make a lovely bodycon dress with puffy sleeves. So if you want to see how I make this dress, definitely keep on watching.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there.
Now we're starting off with the bodice of the dress. The half length is 18 inches, so I'm just marking the baseline right now. Now the next thing I'm marking is the armhole line, which is 8 inches. I'm also marking the bust point line, which is 12 inches, as well as the under bust line, which is 16 inches. Now at the baseline, I'm just dividing the shoulder by 2 and I'm marking that, and I'm also adding 1 inch allowance to that. On the armhole line, I'm just dividing the bust circumference by 4 and I'm marking that. I'm not adding any allowance to this because the fabric is stretchy. On the hem of the bodice, I'm just marking the waistline divided by 4 with no allowance, and I'm connecting those 2 points with a straight line. I'm also using my curved ruler to draw a curve from the armhole line to the shoulder plus 1 inch allowance. Guys, I really apologize if the chalk is not showing very well on the piece. The fabric is white and I didn't want the chalk to really stain the fabric, and that's why I try to make, I try to use the chalk very lightly on the fabric. So I'm just going ahead to cut out the pieces. I also cut out my back piece with 1 inch zipper allowance. The width of my neck is 3 inches and the depth is 5 inches. So I'm just drawing a curved line to connect those 2 points together. For the back neckline, the depth is 2 inches, while the width is also 3 inches like the front piece. So I'm just drawing the neck as well for the back piece, and I'm just cutting that round neck for the back piece, and I'm cutting the round neck as well for the front piece. For my shoulder slope, I'm just going to cut the shoulder with 1/2 inch downwards to create that slope. I'm also cutting along the zipper allowance line to separate the back piece into 2. At the bottom part of the zipper allowance, I've just cut out 1/2 inch from that to remove or eliminate any zipper bulge. Now from the edge of the zipper allowance, I'm just marking 1 inch inwards, okay? So I'm just marking from the edge of the zipper allowance, I'm marking 1 inch inwards. Now once I separate the pieces, this is what we have. Now I'm going to go ahead and join the back pieces together along that zipper allowance line. Now moving on to the skirt, I'm going to start by drafting the back piece. The length of my skirt is 25 inches and the hip line is 9 inches. I'm just extending that waistline and hip line. Now from the fold, I'm just marking 1.5 inches so I can create the zipper allowance. Remember that this is the back piece that we're drafting first, okay? And now I'm just connecting those lines with a straight line. Now I'm going to divide the waist circumference by 4. Now I'm marking that from the zipper allowance line and I'm marking that point. On the hip line, I'm just dividing the hip circumference by 4 and I mark that on the hip line. For the hem, I subtracted 3 inches from the hip measurements and then divided what I got by 4. Now I'm just connecting all those points and then I'm cutting along the lines. Remember to measure the measurements or take the measurements from the zipper allowance line, okay? So now at the waist, I'm just going in by 1/2 inch and then I'm connecting that to the hip line. At the hem of the skirt, I'm also going in by 1/2 inch and I'm also connecting that to the hip line. Now this is what they call bum contour, just so that the bum has a very nice fitting at the end of the day. Now I'm cutting along that line and this is what we have. Now for the front part of my skirt, it has a slit, okay, and it overlaps a bit in front, okay? So I'm just placing my back piece on top of my fabric with about 3 inches extra at the fold. Then I'm cutting the same outline that I had for the back. Now measuring the waist there, I'm just dividing what I have by 2 and then I'm marking that on the waist there, okay? So just get the midpoint of your waist, okay? And I'm also getting the quarter measurement as well. So quarter of my waist, I'm marking that as well. So the midpoint and quarter of that waist measurement is what I marked. Now I also got the midpoint of the hem as well, and then I'm just drawing a curve from that quarter at the waist to the midpoint at the hem. Then I'm just using my scissors to just cut a curve along that line. Now I'm going to fold that in and sew it down. Okay. Now moving on to our sleeve, I'm just folding my piece twice so I can cut both sleeves at the same time. I've marked the baseline of my sleeve and I've also marked 5 inches from the baseline. The length of my sleeve is 19 inches. I'm extending all those other lines. I'm dividing the round sleeve measurement by 2 and I'm marking that on that 5-inch mark, and I added 1-inch allowance to that. On the bottom part of my sleeve, I'm marking the elbow circumference divided by 2, and then I added 1 inch to that and connected the round sleeve to the elbow with a diagonal line. I've also gone ahead to draw the curve of the armhole part of the sleeve, and I'm just cutting along those lines, both the curved line and the diagonal line as well. And then once I'm done, I'm going to move on to draft the piece for my band. So for my band, the length of my band is 43 inches, okay? So I'm just marking the 0-inch mark and I'm also marking the 43-inch mark. I'm going ahead now to just draw a straight line where I'm going to start, my measurements from, so I can start measuring, the width of the band from this straight line. Now from that line, I'm just marking the width of the band, which is 3 inches. So I'm just marking that from one end to the other end. The next thing I'm going to do is cut along those lines. And this right here is the band of my dress. Now back to my skirt. I'm just going ahead to measure 6 inches from the hem, which is how high my slit is going to be. And then from the edge of the second piece, I'm just marking 2 inches and connecting that to that 6-inch mark that I marked earlier. And then I'm cutting along that line. So this is my slit opening. As you can see, if you want your slit to be higher, simply increase the length of the slit. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this edge with a bias tape. So I've gone ahead to do that. As you can see, it's now neat. I've turned it in with a bias tape. Now I'm going to go ahead and place this piece on top so it slightly overlaps. I'm placing the piece on the left on top of the piece on the right so it slightly overlaps, and then I'm going ahead to just pin them together. After pinning them, I'm going to go ahead and sew them together all the way up to the slits, and this is what it looks like. Now for our back piece, I'm going to join the 2 back pieces together along that line. These are my 2 back pieces for my bodice. I'm also going to join them along the zipper allowance line, just like I did for the skirt. Now when I open up the bodice, this is what we have. I'm going to place the front piece on top of the back piece, but I'm not going to sew the shoulders just yet, okay? So don't sew the shoulders just yet. For the skirt pieces, place them right sides facing and then go ahead and sew them along the sides. Remember that I didn't add any allowance, so just sew them together with 1-inch seam allowance. So this is what my pieces look like. I'm just turning them so that the back pieces are facing upwards and it's also at the wrong side. Now what I'm going to do is loosen up the seam along the zipper line for my bodice piece, okay? So just go ahead and loosen up the seam completely. Then for the skirts, you want to loosen the seam from the waist all the way down 8 inches. So measure 8 inches from the waist downwards along that zipper allowance line, and then loosen the seam. Okay, stop at the 8-inch mark. Now I'm going to turn my skirt to the right side, and this is what it looks like. I'm also going to open up my bodice like so. Now I'm going to fold my bodice in such a way that the back pieces are together. Okay, so I folded it like this, and then I'm going to cut off 1 inch from the hem of the back piece. This is to remove any zipper bulging. Now I'm going to place my band right sides facing, and I'm going to join it together with my bodice with 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm also going to go ahead and cut off the excess band. Now I'm marking where I have my side seams on the band, and then I'm also going to go ahead and join my skirt to the band. Okay, making sure that the side seam aligns with the markings I made on the band. So this is what it looks like. I've also gone ahead to weave the allowances. Now it's time for us to finally join our shoulders. So I'm just going to pin the shoulders of the front piece and the back pieces together, and I'm going to join them along the shoulder with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm also going to turn the neck in with a bias tape, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in my zipper. Okay, so once we're done with that, this is what we have. Can you see how neat it looks? I've put in my zipper, turning the neck. Okay, now for our sleeve, I'm just placing the sleeve that I cut earlier on top of my folded fabric, and I left extra 8 inches allowance. Okay, I added an extra 8 inches allowance because this is a puffy sleeve. Okay, I'm so sorry for the blurry footage. I didn't realize that my camera wasn't focused, but anyway, we're just going to go ahead and cut along that curve and also separate our pieces. From the hem, make sure you have an extra 1 inch, and then when I open up my piece, this is what I have. Now I'm going to open this up like this. Now I'm going to call this sleeve that is cut out of the white fabric, I'm going to call it the base sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mark 3 inches from the hem of the base sleeve. So just go ahead and mark 3 inches from the hem, and then I'm going to connect those points with a straight line. Now I'm going to call the sleeve cut out of this pattern fabric, I'm going to call this the main sleeve. Now I'm going to place the main sleeve right sides facing with the base sleeve, and then I'm going to go ahead and gather it so that it's the same width with the base sleeve, and I'm going to go ahead and join them along that 3-inch mark. After joining it, this is what we have. I'm going to flip it now and then try to gather the rest of the main sleeve to the base sleeve. Okay, so just gather it in such a way that it now aligns with the base sleeve. Okay, so we have the same curves when I'm done gathering. Then I'm going to sew it down. So after that, this is what we have. I'm going to go ahead and fold my piece now, and then I'm going to join them or close that end with 1 inch seam allowance, which is the allowance I added at the beginning. So once we're done with that, I'm simply going to go ahead and attach this to my dress. I'm also going to do the same thing for the other sleeve, and that's basically it, guys. This is the finished look. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye, guys.